So today what we're going to be talking about is how to make projects work. I mean, how to make projects really work. And what I'm hoping to leave with today is a new understanding of how projects work and also, let's be honest, how they don't work. Now, as I mentioned, I've spent about 20 years working in technical groups, and I've spent the last dozen years really focused in on leadership issues in technical groups. And this came about because the more time I spent, as a technical manager, the more I realized I really felt like there was a real disconnect. And I don't know about you all, but I'm assuming people who are coming to these webinars, you're probably consumers of management books, and you're probably mostly project managers. And I was too. And I spent a lot of time reading these books, and I felt like there was a real disconnect between what I was seeing on the ground and what I was reading in these books. And so I set out to figure out, well, what's so different about managing in technical organizations, or am I just missing something? And the conclusion I came to wasn't that I was missing something, but that these books were written for very generic leadership. And so it didn't matter who you were leading, it didn't matter what you were leading people to do, it didn't matter anything about the nature of power in those relationships. It was all about leadership in a very generic sense. And it struck me that, political leadership is very different than technical leadership, and leading people to build a giant building is very different than leading people to build a big piece of software. And so I set out to figure out, well, what's so different about it? And that's where the ideas in the Leading Geeks book came from. And what we're going to talk about today is the extension of that, because over the years as I've worked with the ideas of internal leadership, it became apparent that you can't solve problems just by looking inside technical projects. You really have to be willing to look around the edges of them and to see where the relationships are occurring and how the projects work and don't work. So let's start off with a slide about project failure. It's kind of a dirty little secret that we as project managers have, but kind of everybody knows it, in that projects fail. They fail fairly often. And these are numbers that you've probably run into before. They're from the Standish Group Chaos Study. They do a study about every 2 or 3 years. And what they do is they go and they survey a whole bunch of software application development projects. And they classify them as succeeded, failed, or what they politely call challenged. Succeeded means showed up on time, on budget, with all the functionality intact. Failed means nothing ever rolled into production ever. And challenged means limped over the finish line late, over budget, or missing major bits of functionality. So let's take a look at these numbers, and then let's be honest, let's take a close look at these numbers in relation to our own career. And most people say, yeah, that looks about right. Succeeded 32, failed 24, challenged 44. And this is pretty bad. I mean, this is kind of embarrassing. I mean, would you really want to take this slide and go to your CFO and show him, like, hey, look, this is how well we're doing? Now, what's particularly interesting about these numbers is not how bad they are, but sadly how good they are. Because when the Standish Group started doing this study in the mid-90s, that succeeded percentage was not 32%, it was 13%. And so as an industry, we now officially suck less than we used to. But this is still pretty embarrassing. So, and by the way, this is also something that I consider, the standards they use to judge success are kind of low, because it doesn't say, we actually transformed our business, we actually saved money, we became more competitive. All it says is we actually delivered something according to the specifications and the estimate. And that's kind of a low bar, because let's be honest, most projects don't have very good specifications or estimates, so how could you possibly know whether they succeeded or not? So this is kind of our industry challenge, and it's not something that's good or bad. It just, it just is. But then we have to ask, well, it's interesting to know that projects fail often, and if we're honest with ourselves, we all experience this. But let's talk about why projects fail. And then there's the classic list. Scope creep. We've all seen that. people are realizing new things as the project goes on. Oh, I wish it would do that. Apathetic senior management, disengaged management. That's a pretty, lack of sponsorship is how we usually refer to it. But it's more than just lack of sponsorship. It's senior management doesn't really care about this project, or they don't see it as important, or they don't understand its importance the same way we do. Let's be honest, bad managers. A lot of projects fail just because, the manager doesn't know what he's doing. And that doesn't mean he doesn't know what he's doing technically. He just doesn't know how to manage. Often enough, we just see technical folks who get promoted into management positions, and they don't really recognize what it means to be a manager. Busted budgets. Yeah, that's kind of more of an after effect, but it's certainly the way most of the time people recognize that a project is actually, in trouble. Nope, they don't have the technical skills. Yep, well, we chose a great technology, but we just couldn't find the right people, or we tried to train our people on a new technology and they didn't really get it. Bad estimates. When you go back and look at that project failure rate, it can just as easily be looked at as a list of how bad are our estimates, because if we're defining project failure in part by how often we're late, bad estimates contribute to late projects as much, if not more than anything. There's too many unknowns. The risk management doesn't happen. Things just don't get managed. Well, we just missed the opportunity. It was too slow, and actually we did deliver something, but we delivered it to market way too late, and it didn't matter anymore. Resources got pulled. Common problem. It's like, the crisis du jour came up, and it was more important, and nobody could argue with it, but we just didn't plan for the idea that there would be other things going on during this project. And the end users just don't have the time or interest to actually tell us what they need, and then they just wait till the end and complain. Hopefully these all, I hope they don't all sound familiar, but I suspect they probably do. So this is pretty common. So in other words, what do business people say about technical people? It's like, well, we say these about other people. I had more important things to do. I couldn't be involved. Or, the business people might say, I don't want to involve them in this strategy meeting. They're just going to slow things down. And I can't handle working with them. Or the technical people can say about the business people, they exaggerate everything and they're going to ask for everything and it's insane. I can't deal with them. Or the business people, they're so incompetent. Why am I bothering to talk to them? Or that wasn't in the requirements. So we're constantly saying all sorts of things. I don't want to admit that I don't know, so I'm going to make something up. Oh, business people. Well, just get 5 people and do it. You can do it. I have faith in you. And, didn't know that there was an opportunity and time-based, and we just didn't understand the risks. These are the kinds of things that I hear people saying when I ask them about deconstructing what went wrong on a project. And hopefully these are the kind of things that you hear. And by the way, if you want to type in questions as we go, feel free to type them in. I am keeping an eye on the question panel, and we'll try to sort of incorporate them as we go. So what does this all mean about project failure? Well, the interesting thing is you look at the history of these sorts of studies about how projects fall apart. What's interesting is that it's not the technology. When technical projects fail, it's really not a technical issue. And the more I've worked in this industry, the more I've realized that it's not just that projects fail because relationships fail.